What fixes this mess?
If I had the answer to that, they would have hired me a long time ago, right? Look, I think there's been a lot of people who have thought they had the answer, or who at least wanted to try. And in the article, I compared it to the siren song, right? This is a classic myth about this, the sirens who would sing to sailors out at sea, and they thought they were going to this beautiful island that they could finally rest after sailing for so long. But when they finally got to the island, they crashed up against the rocks, right? This is what trying to find a savior for the Knicks has been like over the last 20 years. There's always people who think they are the one, but no one so far has been. And I think it really takes a whole new system, not just a whole new savior, to change the Knicks.
Well, with that being said, Ramona, James Dolan has seemingly done the things we usually want owners to do. He's put the money in. He's brought big names in. So why isn't it working with those big names?
It's a great point you make, because he has spent money. I mean, he's spent more money than almost anyone at this trying to fix this. But I think what happens is when you try to create a culture, it's easier said than done. We throw that word around in professional sports like we throw Spurs culture, the Patriots way, right? Well, there's a reason you were able to create that, and it means that every single person who was there is aligned and rowing in the same direction, right? With the Knicks, James Dolan has tried to stay out of it. He's tried to hire somebody and empower that person to create the culture that he wants, but he just can't stop meddling enough, right? Even though in recent years, I actually believe them when they say he hasn't said as much or done as much as he used to, but that's also saying he used to meddle a lot. But he'll meddle just enough. Like recently when he had Phil Jackson as the president of basketball operations, he said, okay, Phil, do your thing, Zen master. But then he wouldn't let him hire Alex McKechnie, who is a great medical expert who now works for the Toronto Raptors. He's the father of load management. He wouldn't let him do everything that he wanted. He also had him stick with Steve Mills, who was a longtime basketball executive in the Knicks office. And so instead of saying, here, Phil, you do everything you want, here's these two things that Phil wants to do that he can't do. Same thing with David Griffin, who was about to take the job, but couldn't quite get all the autonomy because Steve Mills was going to remain there, and they already started signing free agents that he would then have to be accountable for. So just when James Dolan wants to do the right thing, he can't quite do the right thing all the way.
Well, and David Fizdale was obviously a coveted coach when he took this job, and now he's out and didn't get very much time. What does that do? How appealing is this job now to another coach that wants to come in for the Knicks?
Well, look, it's New York, right? I mean, so I'm out here in Los Angeles, where we were having this conversation about the Lakers a couple of years ago. Well, maybe even last summer, right? After Luke Walton was fired. Who wants to coach this team, man? This just seems like a catastrophe. Well, it's still the Lakers. And you know what? It's still the Knicks. It's still the Garden. It's the place where players come in and have their career highs. It's still basketball mecca, right? So somebody's going to want that challenge. And as much as it's hard to imagine, considering how many coaches have tried and failed, and it ends up being kind of a career killer for most of them. Somebody will want that. And I think the big name out there right now, not necessarily coaching-wise, is Masai Ujiri, the president and executive with the Toronto Raptors, who is seen as a guy that the only way you can even talk to Masai or even discuss this is if you're willing to give him everything. And even then, he has to decide if he wants to leave a great situation in Toronto. But somebody like that, somebody like R.C. Buford or Bob Myers from Golden State, an executive on that level who could really reshape the entire culture. That's what Knicks fans are talking about now, and that's what I think Jim Dolan, the owner, is debating if he wants to go in that direction.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For highlights and analysis, check out the ESPN app, and for live streaming and premium content, check out ESPN+.